A few days ago, we talked about solving linear inequalities. And then, just the other day, Wednesday, we talked about solving polynomial equations. The thing that comes naturally next is solving polynomial inequalities. Now, unfortunately, this is another one of the topics that is not in your book, so we're going to go through this worksheet, and then I have a homework sheet for you to do that give you something to do over the weekend so you're not bored. You were worried about that, I know. Okay. So here we have a polynomial inequality. How do we recognize that it's a polynomial inequality? It's got an x squared, and it's got a, what makes it an inequality? It's got a greater than. Okay. So we want to know, when is x squared minus x minus 5 greater than or equal to x minus 2? And apparently we're supposed to be able to tell that from the graph. Which graph is the x squared minus x minus 5? That's the parabola. Okay, we haven't talked much about graphing parabolas yet in this class. We will very soon. This is the parabola. And the x minus 2 is the line. What I want to know is when is the parabola bigger than the line? What do we mean by a parabola being bigger than a line? Well, in the graph, what I mean is, when is the parabola higher? So for example, at x equals 4, the y value on the line looks like it's maybe about 2. But at x equals 4, what's the y value on the parabola? Looks like it's about 10. So at x equals 4, the parabola is bigger than the line. It's up higher. But of course, x equals 4 isn't the only place. Where else is the parabola higher? X equals negative 2 would be another spot where the parabola is higher than the line. Okay, in fact, the parabola and the line are equal right there at that dot, aren't they? Why are the parabola and the line equal right there? That's where they cross. That's where they intersect. And then what happens, that's x equals 3. What happens when I go to the right of x equals 3? Which one's higher? The parabola. So part of the answer would be x could be any number greater than or equal to 3. If x is any number greater than or equal to 3, then the parabola, this part, is higher than the line. It's up higher. But then there's more, because they also meet right there. So that's another spot where they're equal. When is the parabola higher? When we're to the left of that spot. So how would I write to the left of that spot? X is less than or equal to
Negative 3. Negative 1.
Negative 1. You gave me the y value when you said negative 3. We want the x value there. X less than or equal to negative 1. All right, so we have this part of the graph too. Okay, so notice there's a huge difference right there. When we solved linear inequalities, we got an answer that might have been x greater than 3. When you solve polynomial inequalities, quite often you get multiple answers. Just like when we solved polynomial equations, we usually got more than one answer. Same thing happens with inequalities. All right, well, how about number 2? Same sort of deal. We've got a parabola, and we can see the parabola. And we can see the line. There's the line. This time I want the parabola to be smaller than the line. What do I mean by the parabola smaller than the line? Listen, or below in the graph. So where is the parabola below the line? For what x values?
Negative 1, 2, 2.
It looks like they start right there. This time I'm putting a circle, not a dot. And it looks like they meet again right there. Why did I put circles this time and not dots? There's less than, there's no equal to. And this time it looks like the parabola is lower in between. So how am I going to write that? How do I write x is in between -1 and +2? X is less than 2. Go ahead. And greater than? And greater than -1. That would be a correct answer. But that's not usually how we write it. The way we usually write it is x is in between -1 and 2. So notice the difference in these two answers. This answer, we had one chunk shaded in. We wrote one complete answer. This problem back here, we had two completely disjoint chunks, two pieces that don't touch at all. We had a chunk starting at 3 and bigger, a chunk starting at -1 and lower. We had to write that one as two answers.
What if you was to write it with two answers? Would be the right?
If you were to write this one with two answers, I would mark it right. My guess is if you're doing your, well, there won't be extra credit online for this because this isn't online. But if there were extra credit online for this, my guess would be the computer would mark it wrong. That's the standard notation that we write. But if you write it this way, that's going to be okay. I'm not going to mark it wrong. It is a correct answer. All right, flipping the page. Last one with a graph. When is x squared plus 12 less than 4x? It's not. The parabola is always higher than the line, isn't it? The parabola is always above the line. So what are you going to write for an answer? When is x squared plus 4 less than 4x? No solution is correct. So there's another huge difference between polynomial inequalities and linear inequalities. Linear inequalities almost always have an answer. You almost always get x greater than or equal to something, or x less than or equal to something. With polynomial inequalities, your answer quite often can be no solution. That can happen. Okay, now, what do we do when we're not given graphs? How do we solve x squared plus 2x minus 15 less than or equal to 0? Well, first off, we recognize that this is a polynomial inequality. Why is it polynomial? It's got an x squared. When we have a polynomial inequality, we want to start by getting 0 on one side, just like we did with an equation. That's good, we got 0 on one side. What do we do next?
Factor.
We factor. Very good. Can you factor x squared plus 2x minus 15? X plus 5, x minus 3. Good. What do you do next?
Put x plus 5 minus, no, x plus 5 is less than or equal to 0. Do it to both.
Okay, you fell into my trap. Very good. What you don't do this. This is what makes sense. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. It would make sense to take x plus 5 less than or equal to 0 and x minus 3 less than or equal to 0. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. That's your first guess at what makes sense. What's wrong with it? Well, we get x less than or equal to -5 or x less than or equal to 3. And here's the problem. Pick your favorite number smaller than 3. 2. If I plug 2 in here, I get 4 plus 4 minus 15. What's 4 plus 4? What's 8 minus 15? -7. Is -7 less than 0? Yeah, so that one works. Okay. Now pick your favorite number smaller than -5. -6. What's -6 squared? 36. What's 2 times -6? -12. 36 minus 12. 24. 24 minus 15. 9. Is 9 less than 0? No. You don't get the right answer. One of them is right, one of them is wrong, unfortunately. The good news is it's easy to fix. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take x plus 5 and we're going to set it equal to 0. And we're going to take x minus 3 and we're going to set it equal to 0 also. So for just a minute, just a brief moment in time here, we're going to forget about the less than sign. And we're just going to do the equal. That gives me two answers. X equals negative 5. X equals 3. We're going to draw ourselves a number line. And I'm going to mark negative 5 and I'm going to mark 3. At negative 5 and 3, should I put circles or should I put dots? Dots, because my original problem has the equal to in it, doesn't it? So I'm going to put dots there. A dot and a dot. What that does is it splits the number line into 3 regions. We have the region bigger than 3, the region in between negative 5 and 3, and the region smaller than negative 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a favorite number in each region. What's your favorite number bigger than 3? 7. I'm going to take 7 and I'm going to plug it in. What's 7 squared? 49. 14 is the answer to the next question. What's 2 times 7? 14. What's 49 plus 14 minus 15?
63.
Well, I don't really need the exact answer. What I really need to know is if I take 49 plus 17 minus 15, do I get a positive number or a negative number? I get a positive number, don't I? Is a positive number less than 0? No. 7 didn't work. That tells me that none of the numbers up there will work. Try a couple other ones if you want, but I promise none of them will work. Then you pick your favorite number in between negative 5 and 3.
1.
Nope.
2.
Nope. 0. 0 is your favorite number. Why is 0 your favorite number? Because it's real easy to plug in. What's 0 squared? What's 2 times 0? Minus 15. Negative 15, right? 0 plus 0 minus 15 is negative 15. Is negative 15 less than 0? Yes. Always use 0 when you can. 0 is always your favorite number. Shade that way. That one worked. And finally, I picked my favorite number smaller than minus 5. Minus 8. Minus 8 squared. 64. 8 times negative 2. Negative 16. So I have 64 minus 16 minus 15. Grab your calculator, convince yourself that that's a positive number. So is it less than 0? No. So there's my answer. My answer should be negative 5 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3. X is in between negative 5 and 3. All right, so that's how those are going to work. You're going to treat them like equations at first, and you're just going to solve. Solving will give you what we call these split points. Then you're going to pick numbers in each region and see if they work or not. Okay, so let's try another one. Here we have x minus 1 times x plus 4 greater than 0. Well, that one's really nice. It's really nice because it already has 0 on one side, and they already factored for us. They did most of the work. I'm going to draw my number line. What numbers would you like me to put on my number line?
1 and 4.
Negative 1.
Negative 4 and 1. Very good. Watch your signs there. Why negative 4 and 1? Because for this one, you'd have to add 1 to both sides, and that one you'd have to subtract 4. So make sure you get your signs right. Circles or dots? Circles, because we have no equal to in this problem. We have just a greater than. Circles. Give me your favorite number in the whole wide world bigger than 1. What? 0 is not bigger than 1. I need a number bigger than 1.
4.
4. You guys are boring. You should pick like 1,000,006. All right, we'll do 4 though. What's 4 minus 1? 3. What's 4 plus 4? What's 3 times 8?
24.
It's a positive number, right? So it's bigger than 0? So 4 work, everything works. So we shade that way. Now, what's your favorite number between negative 4 and 1?
0.
0. You plug in 0. What's 0 times 0 minus 1? 0 plus 4. Negative 1 times 4. Negative 4. Is negative 4 bigger than 0? No. Cross it out. Favorite number smaller than negative 4?
Negative 6.
Negative 6. What's negative 6 minus 1? Negative 7. Negative 6 plus 2. I'm sorry, negative 6 plus 4. I was thinking of the answer. Negative 2. So I forgot what I had there. I've had negative number times a negative number. When I multiply two negatives, I get a positive. That's good. I shade like so. So this time, again, notice I have two separate pieces shaded. When I have two separate pieces shaded, I absolutely have to write two different answers. So I have to write this as one answer is x is less than negative 4, and the other answer is x is greater than 1. Questions on that one? Okay. How about C? What would you do for C?
Subtract 25.
You got to get 0 on one side, so you would subtract 25. X squared minus 25 bigger than 0. What's next? Factor. X plus 5, x minus 5 bigger than 0. That's the difference of perfect squares. Numbers for my number line. Negative 5, positive 5. Circles or dots? Circles. There's no equal to in this problem, so it's circles. Favorite number bigger than 5? 36. How much is 36 squared? I don't know, but it's pretty darn big, isn't it? And if I take 36 squared and subtract 25, do I have a positive number or a negative number? Positive. Do I really need to know the exact value? I don't. All I really need to know is it positive or negative? 36 squared minus 25, that's going to give me a positive number. Favorite number in between negative 5 and positive 5?
0.
0. 0 squared minus 25. Is that bigger than 0? No. No good there. Favorite number smaller than negative 5? Negative 100. What's negative 100 squared? I don't know exactly, but I know it's a very big positive number, isn't it? Because if I take a negative times a negative, I get a positive. So if I got a very big, if I have 100 squared minus 25, am I going to get a positive number? Yes. Again, you don't need to know the exact value. All you really need to know is your signs. Again, I have two separate little regions, so I have to write two separate answers. X less than negative 5, x bigger than 5. Questions on that one?
Same as writing or.
Yes, you could put the word or in between. I typically just put a comma. All right, I'm going to skip D. There's really nothing new there in D. Tell me what you would do real quick on D.
Subtract 5.
Subtract 5,
Factor.
then factor. Okay, very good. E. E already has 0 on one side. I like that. That's a good thing. So what do I do? Factor by grouping. Okay. Who's the common term in the first group? X squared. Left over? X plus 1. Common in the second group? Negative 4. Left over? X plus 1 greater than or equal to 0. My parentheses match. I'm very happy because I'm doing it right. X plus 1 times x squared minus 4 greater than or equal to 0. Difference of perfect squares. So we have x plus 1 times x plus 2 times x minus 2 greater than or equal to 0. So this time when we draw our number line, how many points do we have to put on our number line? 3. Does that surprise us?
No.
It shouldn't. Why shouldn't it surprise us? We started with an x cubed. When we start with an x cubed, you usually get 3 answers. When you start with an x squared, you usually get 2. Okay, what are the numbers that I mark on my number line?
Negative 1, negative 2, 2.
Negative 1, negative 2, and 2. Circles or dots?
Dots.
dots because I do have the equal to in the beginning. This time, how many favorite numbers am I going to have to pick? More than 3. 4, I've got to pick one bigger than 2. I've got to pick one in the middle here, one in the middle there, and then one down there. So if you have 2 dots, you got to pick 3 points. If you have 3 dots, you got to pick 4 numbers. What is your favorite number bigger than the number 2? 3? All right, I'm going to take 3, and I find it much easier to plug it in down here where I've factored rather than plug it into the original. So I'm going to plug 3 in here. What's 3 plus 1?
4.
What's 3 plus 2?
5.
What's 3 minus 1?
1.
I'm sorry, 3 minus 2?
1.
1. I had a positive, and a positive. All 3 of those were positive, weren't they? When I multiply 3 positive numbers, what do I get? A positive. Again, do I need to know the exact value? No. Is it worth taking the time to find the exact value? Yes?
I would say yes.
I'm going to disagree with you very strongly in just a minute here. But it worked,
We
didn't
have more
it?
to do, so no, but that way you know for sure.
Yeah, but it's going to get ugly. You watch.
Uh-oh.
What's your favorite number between -1 and 2?
0.
0. If I plug 0 in, 0 plus 1,
1.
that's positive. 0 plus 2,
2.
that's positive. 0 minus 2. So a positive times a positive times a negative. Negative. No good. Cross it off. Here's where it gets ugly. And this happens every once in a while. What's your favorite number between -2 and -1?
It's gotta be a decimal.
It's got to be a decimal or a fraction. So pick your favorite number in between.
-1.5.
-1.5. That would have been my favorite number too. What's -1.5 plus 1?
Negative.
-1/2. It's a negative number, isn't it? What's -1.5 plus 2?
1.5.
-1.5 plus 2
1.5.
is 1/2. It's a positive number. So we had a negative times a positive. -1.5 minus 2. That's negative. A negative minus a negative is more negative, isn't it? So we had a negative number, a positive number, and a negative number. So I multiply 2 negatives, I get a positive, and then multiply by another positive, I get a positive. Do I really want to find the exact number there and deal with all those little ugly decimals? No. All I really want to do is chase the signs. Is it wrong to grab your calculator and type this in and get the exact number? Of course not. I think you're working too hard. I think you can just look at the signs, look at the positives and the negatives, and figure it out from there. That one worked. Finally, another easy one. My favorite number smaller than -2.
-4.
-4. -4 plus 1.
-3.
That's a negative. -4 plus 2. That's a negative. -4 minus 2. -6. Negative times negative times negative. 3 negatives make a negative. That's no good. Okay, how do I write my final answer this time?
Want to be one single term like x. X is greater than 2. And then when x is...
Okay, so this piece over here, this piece, I agree, that's x is greater than or equal to 2. And what's this piece here? -2, less than or equal to x, less than or equal to -1. Again, I have 2 separate chunks, 2 pieces that don't touch, so I need to write 2 separate answers. There they are. All right, the last problem. Just enough time. The function s of t equals -16t squared plus 32t plus 1920 gives the height s in feet of an object thrown upward with a velocity of 32 feet per second from a cliff that is 1,920 feet high. Here t is time in seconds. For what times is the height greater than 1,920 feet? What in the world are you going to do? Go ahead, Kel.
That whole big
Thing.
thing. Polynomial.
Yep, polynomial, good
A whole
word.
big polynomial greater than the 1,920 feet.
Exactly. This polynomial tells you the height. So this is my height, negative 16t squared plus 32t plus 1920. And it said we want the height to be greater than 1920. So there's what I need to solve. How would you solve that? Subtract the 1920. That works out really nicely because you get negative 16t squared plus 32t greater than 0. The 1920s add up to 0 and then slide it over there. Can you factor? Bigger than 8.
16.
16. In fact, I'm going to take out a negative 16 since the first thing is negative. Any common variables?
T.
T. My greatest common factor is a negative 16t. When I take out negative 16t, what's left over? T minus 2, because I took out a negative 16. When I take out a negative 16, the sign in the middle changes. All right, I draw my number line. What numbers do I mark on my number line? Not negative 16.
16.
Not 16. Not negative 2. Positive 2. And there's another one. What number, if I take negative 16t equals 0, what number would I plug in for t? Negative 16 times positive 16 doesn't give me 0. 0 gives me 0. I divide both sides by negative 16. That's correct. So t would be 0 right there. 0. Favorite number bigger than 2? 3. If I plug 3 in, what's negative 16 times 3? It's negative. That's all I really need to know. I don't want to know the number. Negative 48 for those playing at home. But it is negative. 3 minus 2 is 1. So a negative number times a positive number. Negative, is that bigger than 0? No, no good. Favorite number between 0 and 2? 1. Negative 16 times 1? Negative. 1 minus 2? Negative 1. Negative times negative is? Positive. Oh, should I put circles or dots, by the way? Circles. Shade in between. Favorite number smaller than 0? Trick question. I don't have one. Because T stands for time. Can time be negative? No. So really, I shouldn't have drawn my number line that way. My number line should have just started at 0 and gone up. The good news is, if you plug a negative number in, you're going to find out that it doesn't work and you're going to cross it off anyway. So it wouldn't hurt you to plug in a negative number, but you really shouldn't in this problem. Time can't be negative. Our answer should be 0 less than t less than 2. Part B, I'm not going to have time to work out part B, but tell me what I would do. For what times is the height less than 640? It's almost the same problem, isn't it? I'm going to take my height equation, minus 16t squared plus 32t plus 1920, and I'm going to make it less than 640. What would I have to do first? Subtract 640. Okay, let's do that. Minus 16t squared plus 32t plus, what's 1920 minus 640? 1280? Less than 0. How are we going to factor that? Nope. Nope. Don't multiply the ends.
Divided by 16.
Always start by looking for a GCF. And I do think 16 is a GCF. In fact, I'm going to take out negative 16. And I get t squared minus 2t minus, I don't know, what's 1280 divided by 16? 80. All right? By taking out that GCF, this problem is now much, much easier to factor. Okay, and I see people forgetting that on a lot of the worksheets that I'm getting back. People are forgetting that GCF. Always, always, always look for a GCF. It will make your life a lot easier. Questions on that? Factor, finish that one off. I'm out of time today.